Welcome to Snail's Story, where gentle tales slowly find their way into the deepest corners of your heart. How's the weather where you are today? If by chance you're caught in a sudden downpour on your way somewhere, don't be too quick to frown, because maybe, just maybe, that rain is the beginning of a beautiful story you never expected. And if you love stories that are quiet, tender, yet deeply moving, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so we can keep telling you stories, whether it's under a bright, sunny sky or on a cloudy night. Today's Snail Story invites you to listen to a very special tale, a wedding invitation from the woman who once walked away, a strange deal between a lonely billionaire and a homeless girl, and a journey where truth and love unfold in the most unexpected way. When status, wealth, and the past are just surface appearances, what truly makes someone stay? The Billionaire and the Homeless Girl at his ex-fiancée's wedding, a story of pride, trust, and a kind of love that money can never buy. That afternoon, the sky over New York was painted in pale gray. The early winter wind slipped through the barren trees, carrying a chill sharp enough to make people bury deeper into their coats. Inside a sleek office on the top floor of a glass skyscraper, Ryan Morrison, the young CEO of one of America's leading tech empires, was finishing the last few signatures on a stack of high-stakes contracts. He had everything anyone could possibly want: talent, fame, fortune, and a striking, almost intimidating kind of charm. But right now, none of it seemed to matter. Not compared to one thing: a plain white envelope placed neatly on his desk beside his phone. A wedding invitation from Olivia Hamilton. Ryan let out a cold smile. That name used to mean everything to him. Olivia, the ex-girlfriend who had walked out on him 3 years ago, back when he was just a broke programmer with nothing but wild dreams. She chose someone more promising, wealthy, secure, established. At the time, Ryan said nothing. He simply built his empire in silence. And now she had sent him an invitation. "You've always been an important part of my past, Ryan. I hope you'll come and witness my happiness. I truly wish you find yours someday, too." Ryan read the handwritten note inside the invitation again. His eyes darkened. Then slowly, a smile formed on his lips. A smile laced with challenge. He would go. But he wouldn't go alone. The next evening, after a long board meeting, Ryan took a rare walk through the small park near headquarters. He needed a clear head before deciding who to bring with him to Olivia's wedding. A supermodel? A famous actress? He could choose anyone. Yet, oddly, none of them sparked any interest until he saw her. A girl was crouched beside a trash bin near a brick wall. Her long brown hair was messy, and she wore a faded hoodie. Her hands sifted through plastic bags, looking for discarded food. A security guard began to approach her, ready to drive her away, but Ryan raised a hand to stop him. The girl looked up and met his eyes. Eyes that, despite the dirt on her face and the hollow look in her cheeks, were startlingly bright. "What's your name?" Ryan asked, his voice calm and deep. She hesitated. "Arya," she replied quietly. "If you're planning to give me some spare change, save it. I'm not looking for pity." Ryan let out a short laugh. "I'm not offering money. I need someone to go with me to a party, and I think you'd be perfect." Arya frowned. "You're joking, right?" "No," Ryan said firmly. "If you agree, I'll take care of everything. Clothes, makeup, transport, food. All I ask is that you pretend to be my girlfriend for one night. I'll pay you well." Arya stared straight into his eyes. Something about him made it hard to say no. Not the money, but the mystery. Why would someone like him choose someone like her? "Fine," she said, "but I have one condition." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" "You don't get to control how I act. I'll be myself." He paused, then nodded. Deal? 2 days later, at the luxury hotel where the wedding was held, every eye turned as the sleek black Rolls-Royce pulled up. From it stepped Ryan in a tailored black tuxedo, poised and proud. Beside him, Arya, dressed in a deep wine-colored silk gown, her hair elegantly swept up, lips a bold red, was so stunning. People couldn't look away. Olivia nearly dropped her champagne glass at the sight. Her fiancé, a businessman nearly 10 years older than Ryan, couldn't hide his surprise either. Ryan simply smiled and drew Arya closer. "My love, what would you like to drink?" Arya smiled naturally, as if she belonged there. "A glass of champagne, thank you." Olivia approached them, voice sweet but eyes sharp with disdain. "Oh, Ryan, I didn't think you'd actually come. And this is?" "Arya," the girl replied before Ryan could speak. "His girlfriend? It's lovely to meet you." Voice was soft but confident, catching Olivia off guard. Something felt off. She wasn't as ordinary as she looked at first. Ryan glanced at Arya, surprised. She wasn't nervous at all. She met Olivia's judgmental gaze with a calm that was almost unsettling. The night had only just begun. But Ryan already knew he didn't just bring a date. He might have just started something far more interesting. Asterisk, a sleek black Bentley pulled up to the grand entrance of the Lancaster Hotel, a venue where only guests with at least 8 digits in their net worth received invitations. Ryan stepped out first, dressed in a hand-tailored black tuxedo, his expression as cold and composed as ever. Arya followed, her slender heels landing on the red carpet with steady confidence. No hesitation, no sense of being out of place. The velvet evening gown she wore hugged her graceful curves. The deep-cut back, revealing a proud posture and a neck lifted with quiet defiance. Her hair was pinned up elegantly, her gaze unwavering. The crowd murmured, eyes following the mysterious young woman at the side of the city's most sought-after billionaire. No one knew who she was. But she walked into the ballroom like she owned it. Ryan glanced at Arya discreetly. "You don't mind people staring?" Arya gave a faint smile. "I'm used to being judged, and I've learned how to rise above it." He chuckled softly. That answer, it wasn't something a street girl would say. She was too poised, too refined. Olivia's wedding reception felt more like a showcase of wealth and social dominance. Exclusive designer gowns, oversized diamonds, icy laughter, and conversations thick with investment jargon. Ryan nodded to a few old acquaintances, keeping his words brief. When he introduced Arya, it was always the same. "My date for the evening, no more, no less." No explanations, no over-familiarity. Arya never questioned it. They both understood. This was a deal. A performance. Ryan needed a woman to prove to Olivia that he hadn't come alone. Arya needed a reason to eat a decent meal and stay warm for the night. And yet, what happened next began to puzzle Ryan. "Is that a limited edition Vera Wang Paris you're wearing?" Arya asked a middle-aged woman with a polite, knowing smile. "You recognized it?" The woman blinked in surprise. "I studied fashion for a few years. Your taste is hard to miss." Arya spoke with ease, fluid, respectful, entirely. At home, she didn't fumble, didn't shrink. Her posture was impeccable, her gestures elegant. She lifted her wine glass the proper way, nodded at the right moments. Everything about her was ... Polished. An older businessman strolled over to their table, chuckling. "Ryan, aren't you going to introduce your fiancé?" Ryan paused just for a second, but Arya was quicker. "Oh no, I'm just his plus one," she said with a graceful smile. "Unfortunately for him, I haven't said yes to anything yet." Laughter broke out. The atmosphere lightened. Ryan looked at her, and something in his eyes shifted, a flicker of something he couldn't quite name. After the cocktail hour, Olivia the bride began making her rounds, greeting guests at each table. When she arrived at Ryan's, her smile froze for a split second as her eyes landed on Arya. "Hello, Ryan," she said sweetly, with a quick glance toward Arya. "And your guest is?" Arya. The girl offered her hand first. With ease. "His date for the night." "Oh, how interesting." Olivia tilted her head. "I imagine you haven't attended many events like this." "On the contrary," Arya replied smoothly, "I've been to quite a few. Though not always as a guest." Ryan narrowed his eyes. Another puzzle piece. But Arya remained composed. Unshaken. Olivia pressed her lips together and moved on, unable to hide her irritation. Ryan turned to Arya. "You do realize you just knocked out the woman who once rejected my marriage proposal?" Arya sipped her wine and shrugged slightly. "I just spoke the truth. Don't tell me you weren't hoping for a little fun at your ex's wedding." Ryan laughed. He didn't know what to make of her. A homeless girl with no money, no background, and yet she spoke like someone who had once run an empire. She didn't play the grateful guest. She wasn't scared. She didn't flatter. She was just being herself. Even in a world that clearly wasn't hers, as the first notes of the opening dance echoed through the ballroom. Ryan didn't ask if she wanted to dance. He simply stood and extended his hand. "We might as well sell the role properly. Care to join me?" Arya looked at him. A brief pause. Then she placed her hand in his. "I'm quite good at this role," she said. The wedding reception buzzed with laughter, warm golden lights, and the soft clinking of crystal glasses. But Arya knew that not all battles were loud. Some were silent, sharper, and far more dangerous. "How long have you been seeing Ryan?" Olivia asked, gliding over to Arya while Ryan was across the room, deep in conversation with the politician about green investments. "Not long," Arya answered calmly, her smile poised. "Just today, actually." Olivia narrowed her eyes, before letting out a polished little laugh. "So it's spontaneous. I had the impression you've been part of his life for quite a while." Arya didn't respond. She merely took a sip of her wine. But Olivia wasn't done. "He's always been very selective. The people around him tend to come from a certain kind of background. You know what I mean, don't you?" Arya met Olivia's gaze directly. It wasn't confrontational nor submissive, just a stillness unreadable but firm. She placed her glass down and smiled. "Luckily, I don't belong to any background, which means I have no image to protect." Olivia faltered for half a beat. Her usual tactics weren't working. Still, she pressed on. "I just thought someone like you might find this world a bit suffocating. Sometimes knowing who you are is a gift." "You're right," Arya nodded. "I know exactly who I am. The real question is, do you?" This time, Olivia froze. The air between them pulled tight like a stretched string. But just then, the event manager took the stage, his voice cheerful over the microphone. "To liven things up, let's play a little game. Each table will choose one representative to join us up here. They'll be given a random question on etiquette, culture, or intelligence." A ripple of laughter and excitement spread across the room. The tension began to dissolve, replaced by playful chatter. Olivia opened her mouth, perhaps to regain control of the moment, but Ryan's voice cut in smoothly. "Arya, your turn." She turned to look at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. Then she smiled. "I love a good challenge." Arya stepped onto the stage. The spotlight hit her in a cascade of gold, her crimson gown shimmering like a constellation. The host spun a large glass jar filled with folded slips of paper. He pulled one out and grinned. "Your question: if you found yourself in a social setting where everyone came from a completely different class, what would you do to avoid being looked down on?" Soft laughter rippled through the room. Olivia's. Eyes sparkled hopeful. Expectant, Arya held the mic. For a few seconds, she said nothing. The room held its breath. I wouldn't try to be like them. I'd make them curious about me. Silence. Her voice had weighted from volume. But from clarity, she continued. A person's value doesn't lie in a dress, a name, or a bank account. It lies in how they walk into a room and make people turn to look again. Then she smiled, gentle, but unshakable. I didn't come here to be accepted. I came here to be remembered. Applause broke out first, scattered, then growing, into a sweeping wave across the room. Ryan clapped longer than anyone, and he never took his eyes off her. Olivia's manicured hand curled tightly around the folds of her six-figure wedding gown. Ryan approached just as Arya stepped down from the stage. That answer, he said slowly, wasn't what I expected from a homeless girl. Arya met his gaze, her eyes bright, unwavering. You think homeless people can't be smart? I think. Ryan hesitated. You were trained properly. And you were taught to hold your head high in a room full of investors, weren't you? Arya countered, her voice soft as air. So was I. The only difference is I lost the chance to use it sooner. Ryan said nothing, but something inside him was cracking fractures in the tidy frame of assumptions he'd built around her. She wasn't like anyone he'd ever met. And too many things about her didn't add up. Who was this girl? And why, after just a few hours, could he no longer look away? The wedding ended close to midnight. The lights dimmed, the music faded into a distant echo, like a memory already slipping away. Ryan sat behind the wheel, with Arya beside him, the woman who, somehow, had tilted the entire evening in the direction of her laughter and quiet confidence. No one would have guessed. She was just someone he hired. Thank you, he said, as the car turned onto a winding road toward the hillside estate. You didn't just save me from an awkward situation. You made the whole event unforgettable. Arya simply smiled, silent. Her eyes gazed out the window where the city was falling asleep, its lights twinkling like fallen stars. But I still don't get it, Ryan continued. Someone like you, how can you speak that way, carry yourself like that? Where did you learn? Arya turned to face him, her voice feather-light. What if I told you I used to live in a place not so different from those mansions out there? Would you believe me? Ryan looked at her, caught off guard, but said nothing. The puzzle pieces in his mind were beginning to shift. He wasn't someone easily convinced, especially when something felt this improbable. That night, after Arya had retired to the guest lounge downstairs, Ryan sat at his desk upstairs. He opened his laptop, typing in the name Arya. Nothing, just noise in the form of irrelevant news clippings. He tried a different approach, facial recognition, narrowing it to the district where he'd first found her. A few old headlines popped up. Blurry photos of a girl once reported missing. Same hair, same eyes. Ryan zoomed in on the picture. Those eyes, he had seen them that very evening. Arya Emerson, sole daughter of the late biotech tycoon, missing for over 3 years after a mysterious accident. Ryan leaned back from the screen, his pulse raised. He wasn't one to lose composure, but this discovery tore through every rational assumption he'd made. He glanced downstairs. The girl, now sleeping lightly on a long couch, wrapped in a borrowed throw, was the heir to a financial empire. The next morning, Arya woke to the smell of breakfast. Ryan was cooking. He didn't ask anything. She didn't offer anything. But when he set the coffee down in front of her, their eyes met, hesitation in one, vulnerability in the other. You used to be Arya Emerson, didn't you? Her hand paused midair, cup trembling ever so slightly. 1 second. 2. Then she nodded, slowly. I figured you found out, she said, without bitterness. Her voice didn't hold fear, only a quiet sadness. I knew I couldn't hide forever. Why? Did you disappear? Ryan asked, not accusing, just genuinely curious. Arya sighed, her gaze shifting to the glass doors, where morning sunlight streamed through the trees. My father died suddenly. My mother lost control. The fortune became a war zone. I was pushed out of the family, out of everything. I didn't lose my mind. I just chose to vanish before I got swallowed whole. Ryan sat in silence. She went on, "Don't pity me. I survived. I learned how to get by, how to stay upright when you've got nothing. And then you showed up. I just hired you for a wedding," Ryan murmured, still struggling to make sense of it all. "Why did you say yes?" Arya gave a faint smile. "Because I wanted to see if people like Olivia still resembled the person I used to be. I wanted to look at my old world with new eyes." A long pause. Ryan stood and took a few steps toward her. "I don't know who you really are. But I know one thing: you're unlike anyone I've ever met, whether it's on the street or in a boardroom." Arya looked up at him for the first time, a flicker of emotion in her gaze. "You don't have to believe me, but thank you for not throwing me out of this house the second you knew who I was." Ryan chuckled, half sincere, half teasing. "I didn't get a chance to write that clause into our contract." They both laughed. But deep inside them, something had started to take shape, not suspicion, but connection. Something quietly crossing the boundaries of coincidence. After that morning, Ryan didn't ask Arya anything more about her past. But inside, questions swirled without answers. If Arya truly was the daughter of the late billionaire Emerson, then her disappearance 3 years ago was no mere accident or personal decision. Something had been buried, and someone had helped bury it. And Ryan, someone who always played the long game in the financial world, couldn't sit still when a dangerous move was unfolding right in front of him, one that was worth the risk. That afternoon, he visited the headquarters of a powerful investment firm, Haywood Capital, an old ally of the Emerson family. He stepped into the boardroom, face unreadable. Waiting there was a man in a gray suit, Marcus Haywood, chairman and CEO. Once a close associate of the Emersons. "Ryan, a pleasure to see you again." Marcus greeted him with a handshake and a smile sharp as a blade. "I'm not here for pleasantries," Ryan replied bluntly. "I came to ask you about Arya Emerson." Marcus froze for the briefest second, his eyes flickering. "She's dead, isn't she? I recall. It was an accident." Ryan leaned back in his chair, his stare cutting through the room. "I ran a facial recognition scan using archived photos. She's not dead, and I know you know that." The air turned thick with silence. Marcus slowly set down his coffee, trying to keep composed. "I'm not sure what you're suggesting, Ryan. If some girl is claiming to be Arya, she's not claiming," Ryan interrupted. "I've met her, and she remembers exactly who pressured her family into signing power of attorney documents the month before her father died." Marcus said nothing. He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it. But in his silence, Ryan heard everything he needed. "I'm not here to reopen every wound," Ryan said slowly. "But if anyone tries to hurt her again, I won't just sit back." He stood, leaving behind a boardroom heavy with unspoken threats. Elsewhere, in a dim old cafe tucked away in the historic quarter, Arya sat across from a woman in her 30s, elegantly dressed, but with eyes as cold as stone. "I thought you were dead in some forest," the woman sneered. "And yet here you are, dazzling at Olivia's wedding. Not bad. You're still as venomous as ever." "Catherine," Arya replied calmly. "Only difference now is I'm not afraid of you anymore." Catherine, Arya's cousin, and the shadowy hand behind the mysterious demise of Mr. Emerson and the questionable asset transfers, smirked. Ice in her veins. "You think coming back means you'll get it all back? Your name's been wiped from every legal record." And if you think Ryan's going to save you, he's no smarter than Olivia. You're wrong, Arya said, eyes steady. I don't need saving. I want justice. And this time, I've got proof to reopen the case. She slid a small USB drive across the table. Inside are voice recordings from my father's attorney, archived email backups from his final year, and payment invoices for several suspicious transactions. Your name. Catherine went pale. What are you going to do? She stammered. Not me. Arya stood. Ryan's legal team will handle it. That evening, back at the Hilltop estate, Ryan stood on the balcony, a glass of wine in hand. Arya stepped out beside him. I met with Catherine. She said, I met with Marcus, he answered, sipping slowly. You don't have to face them alone. I used to think I was all alone, Arya said, gazing into the distance. But not anymore. Ryan turned to look at her. Their eyes met, no words needed. We're stepping into a war, he said. I know, she nodded. But this time, I'm not running. And in that moment, both of them knew this. Wasn't just a contract anymore. It was a bond forged in truth, guarded by trust, and fueled by fire. For days after the confrontation with Catherine, Blaine and Associates, one of New York's top corporate law firms, officially issued a subpoena to Haywood Capital and Catherine Emerson, demanding formal deposition. Arya stood in front of the towering glass building, wrapped in a beige trench coat and dark sunglasses. But no layer of clothing could hide the fire burning in her eyes. Ryan stepped beside her, calm as ever. He looked at her for a long moment and said quietly, From this moment on, no one can erase your name again. The hearing took place in a private conference room under the supervision of the Manhattan Commercial Court. Across the room, Marcus and Catherine arrived with a small army of lawyers, but the sight of Ryan's lead counsel, Avery Blaine, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, known for never losing a case, quickly wiped the confidence off their faces. Avery began with a voice like steel. We have an internal meeting recording from June 3 years ago, in which Mr. Marcus Haywood admitted that Mr. Emerson was experiencing psychological manipulation following a temporary memory loss due to his accident. The opposing side froze. Avery continued. We also have financial records of a wire transfer between Catherine Emerson and an unregistered legal firm in Panama just 2 days after. A new will was filed, removing Arya Emerson from the line of inheritance. A document flashed onto the screen. Dates, figures, shell corporations, everything lined up too perfectly to deny. Catherine fumbled, whispering urgently to her private attorney. Marcus sat stiffly, a sheen of sweat forming on his forehead. Arya had remained silent for nearly an hour. But when the opposing lawyer argued that Arya has no verifiable proof that she is the girl named in the original will, she slowly took off her sunglasses and stood. I don't owe anyone a proof of my own identity, she said, her voice calm yet ringing like a bell. But if that's what it takes, I've submitted a DNA test. Compared to a hair sample from my father still preserved under legal seal from 3 years ago. She laid a thick envelope on the table. Avery nodded firmly, verified by an independent forensics institute. Marcus's legal team immediately requested a recess. The court denied it at the end of the preliminary hearing. The court issued an order to temporarily freeze all Emerson estate assets, including Arya's former shares, real estate, and investment portfolios. Catherine stormed out of the room in panic. But as she passed Arya, she spat one last bitter line. You might win it all back, but no one will ever trust you again. You're the girl who vanished, the one who lived like trash on the streets. Even if you scrub yourself clean, people will still smell it. Arya said nothing. But Ryan didn't stay silent. He stepped forward and stared into Catherine's eyes. The thing people truly find revolting isn't the scent of poverty. It's the stench of lies and betrayal. And you reek more than anyone I've ever met." That night, Ryan and Arya sat in his penthouse. Study. The television broadcasted a breaking news story. Emerson estate dispute officially reopened. The mysterious heiress returns. "Do you regret this?" Ryan asked, eyes still on the screen. Arya shook her head and smiled faintly. "No, but I am. A little scared." He turned to her, his expression softening. "If you're scared, lean on me. You don't have to be strong all the time." She blinked, touched by the unexpected tenderness. Through all the storms, Ryan hadn't just been a brilliant strategist. He had become the rare, safe place she'd never thought she'd find in a world full of deception. "You really believe in me?" she asked quietly. "I've believed in you since the moment you stepped out of that car. And every day since, that belief has only grown." Meanwhile, across the city, Catherine was on a call. Her voice trembled, but her words were laced with venom. "She's winning. If you still have that video, now's the time to release it." A cold male voice responded from the other end. "Are you sure? If we play that card, Ryan won't just be a legal opponent. He'll destroy everything you have." Catherine's reply came like a knife. "Then let him. At least, I'll drag Arya down to hell with me." It started with a blurry photo Arya in a dazzling dress at Olivia's wedding, accompanied by a cruel caption, "Billionaire Ryan Foster brings a homeless girl as a fake girlfriend to spite his ex." Within 24 hours, it exploded. Tabloids, TikTok, financial podcasts all seemed to conspire in dragging Arya's buried past back into the light. Old photos of her on the streets surfaced, source unknown. Commentators accused her of using Ryan to climb the social ladder. The hashtag fake heiress quickly shot to the top of trending topics. Ryan was on his way to the office when his assistant ran up, face pale as paper. "We have a problem, a big one." Now, in the emergency boardroom meeting, lawyers, PR experts, and crisis managers sat in tense silence. Ryan's voice was sharp. "I don't care about stock prices. I want to know who's behind this. And is she okay?" No one answered. A team member quietly pressed the remote. The screen lit up. With a news clip, there was Arya, eyes wide with confusion but trying to stay calm, exiting what appeared to be a women's shelter. A reporter cornered her with a loaded question. "Is it true you faked your identity to be with billionaire Ryan Foster?" Arya stared straight into the camera, her voice steady. "If I'm a homeless woman, does that mean I don't deserve dignity?" That evening, Ryan's penthouse felt silent as if the outside world had ceased to exist. But inside, everything was cracking. Arya sat curled on the sofa, clutching a cup of cold tea. Ryan stood in front of her, unmoving. "I should go," she said quietly. "You're getting dragged into this now." Ryan didn't respond. He just looked at her, long and hard, as if trying to read every part of her she'd been hiding. "So you still don't trust me," he said. Arya clenched her fists. She knew she should say something, but her throat tightened. She was afraid. Afraid of being hurt again, Ryan stepped forward and sat beside her. "Do you think I'm the kind of man who runs when things get hard?" She looked at him, eyes rimmed red. "You should. I loved Olivia once. She left because she couldn't handle the spotlight. So tell me, Arya, are you going to run too?" Arya didn't answer. But inside her, his words were breaking down every wall she had spent years building. No one had ever asked if she was okay. No one ever stayed when she had nothing left, except him. 2 days later, Arya appeared on a major talk show. Across from a seasoned host, no flashy gown, no forced grace. Just a crisp white shirt, her hair in a neat bun, but her eyes steadfast. The host asked, "Would you like to explain how the daughter of Kendrick Financial Group ended up homeless?" Arya nodded, and then she told her story about how her father's empire crumbled due to betrayal from within, about the accident that took her mother, about the so-called friends who vanished overnight, and finally about her decision to disappear because she no longer trusted anyone. "I used to think I was completely alone," she said, "until Ryan came along. He didn't ask who I was. He just held out his hand." The screen cut to Ryan sitting quietly in the audience. Arya smiled softly as she looked toward him, and today, "I don't want to run anymore." That night, Ryan and Arya stood outside a familiar building, the former headquarters of Kendrick Financial Group. Ryan turned to her. "Are you ready?" Arya nodded. "I'm not afraid anymore. I don't have to pretend to be someone else. No, now, I don't have to walk this alone." Ryan took her hand, warm, steady. "Neither do I. The media can be a double-edged sword." But this time, it gave Arya a voice and a chance to reclaim her dignity. And in the midst of chaos, the love between her and Ryan was tested, and it endured. The ocean breeze brushed softly through Arya's hair as she stepped out of the car. A simple, elegant black dress hugged her figure. She looked every bit the CEO. The glass tower that once housed Kendrick Financial Group bore a different name now, Lorenz Capital. Controlled by her late father's former partner ever since the collapse 4 years ago. But today, everything was about to change. Ryan stepped out beside her, not as an escort, not as a strategist, but as quiet support. He didn't speak, didn't issue orders. He simply stood behind her right where she needed him most. The boardroom doors opened. Dozens of familiar faces turned to look. Some were shocked. Some smirked. Others looked afraid. Arya Kendrick, a silver-haired man, chuckled. "I thought you'd disappeared for good." She pulled out a chair and sat down, calm and composed. "I didn't disappear. I was just waiting for the right moment to return." The meeting lasted 3 hours. Arya laid out every legal document proving the irregularities in the asset transfers after her father's death, from forged signatures to siphoned investments. She even played an audio clip of the family's former attorney admitting he had been coerced into altering the will. According to the original company charter, she concluded, if any living Kendrick descendant demonstrates sufficient financial standing, they have the right to reclaim primary shareholder status. A woman, one of her father's former partners, spoke coldly. "You're just a girl who used to sleep on the sidewalk. Who would believe you?" Arya didn't flinch. She reached into her bag and laid a document on the table. "I don't need them to believe me. I just need them ... to be afraid." It was a contract, a formal declaration of financial and legal backing from Ryan Foster, a billionaire with global influence. A man willing to fund a full-scale lawsuit if negotiations failed. Silence fell over the room. That very afternoon, the news exploded. Arya Kendrick initiates legal action to reclaim her family's empire. Ryan Foster confirmed as financial backer. Social media flipped. The mocking comments vanished, replaced by awe. New hashtags emerged. Hashtag Real Heiress. Hashtag Kendrick Returns. Hashtag Arya Rises. But Arya didn't celebrate. That night, she stood silently by the window of Ryan's penthouse, gazing out at the glittering city below. Ryan approached with a mug of hot cocoa. "You don't look happy. I never thought I'd come back. At least, not like this." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You're still you. Just stronger, wiser. And this time, you're not alone." She smiled faintly. "Aren't you scared?" "I'm going up against an entire system." He shrugged. "Did you forget? You once walked into Olivia's wedding alone and silenced a whole room full of critics. Compared to that, this is nothing." They both laughed softly. And in that moment, Arya knew She was no longer the girl huddled under an awning in the rain. She was an heiress, a survivor, and now forced to be reckoned with. Weeks later, a press conference was held in a grand hall. Arya stepped onto the stage in a white suit. No teleprompter, no rehearsed speech, just truth. I once had everything. Then I lost it all. And when I lived at rock bottom, I learned the most important lesson of all, that power doesn't lie in wealth, it lies in the strength of someone who has nothing left and still stands. I didn't return for revenge. I returned to restore my father's name, my mother's dignity, and my own. In the crowd, Ryan watched with quiet pride. Rumor had it Olivia had already left the city. That night, they sat on the balcony of Ryan's penthouse, the breeze playing with their hair. The city lights shimmered like fallen stars. "You know," Arya whispered, resting her head on his shoulder, "I used to wish I could go back and do it all differently, so I wouldn't lose everything." Ryan gently squeezed her hand. "But if you hadn't lost everything, do you think we'd have met?" She smiled. "Probably not." And so they sat. Two people, one who lost her legacy, the other who lost his love, together now, after all the storms. No masks. No contracts. Just them. Truly. Late autumn had cast a chill over New York. Golden leaves drifted along the sidewalk outside the newly renamed headquarters Kendrick and Foster Group, though the transition was still underway. The name alone sent a clear message to the market. The Kendrick heiress had returned, not just in name, but in strength. Arya sat behind the long boardroom table, wrapped in a cream-colored suit, eyes sharp, voice steady. Every word she spoke landed with precision. No one dared underestimate her now, not even those who had once sneered at her legal battle. The meeting ended. Arya glanced at her watch. She was 10 minutes late to the charity dinner Ryan was hosting at the Riverside venue. Ryan stood amidst a warm glow of candlelight and champagne flutes. Investors, media figures, and charity leaders began murmuring with growing impatience. A few journalists whispered, "Arya Kendrick, late again. Trouble in paradise." Ryan kept a calm smile, raising his glass. But his eyes never left. The entrance, then she appeared. No gown, no glitter. Just a simple black dress, pale lips, and tired eyes. But to Ryan, she was still the most beautiful woman in the room. "I'm sorry," she whispered as she reached him. The meeting ran longer than expected. Ryan gently placed a hand on her back. "I understand, but they don't." Together, they stepped into the spotlight. Arya's smile was composed, but the tension behind her eyes betrayed her inner turmoil. Something had begun to tear at her from within. Later that night, as the car pulled away from the hotel, Arya spoke softly. "Ryan, if one day I had to choose between love and the company, what would you choose?" He didn't answer immediately. Streetlights cast soft shadows on his steady face. "That's a question I should be asking you." Arya looked at him, startled. "Arya," Ryan continued, "when I walked into your life, I never asked you to give up your power or your past. I only hoped for someone who'd walk beside me, whether it was toward a boardroom or just a small home." She looked down, voice trembling. "I'm scared of becoming someone else, of losing myself in all of this." "No," he said gently, "you're afraid of losing your heart. But Arya, that heart is what sets you apart. I'm here to remind you of it every day, if I have to." A week later, Arya was invited to speak at the Global Young Leaders Summit. Before hundreds of delegates and corporate figures, she didn't talk about wins or numbers. She spoke of loss, of identity stolen, of nights spent cold and hungry under store awnings, and finally, of choosing between vengeance and rebuilding. "I chose to rebuild. It's not just a company, but a person." The room fell silent. Then came the applause, thunderous and sincere. That night, back in their apartment, Arya walked into the kitchen. Ryan stood by the stove, flipping pancakes, a ritual he had adopted during her sleepless nights. "You're not asleep? I had a feeling you'd be hungry." She leaned against the doorway, smiling. "I used to think falling in love with someone in business would be exhausting. And you're the exception." Ryan tilted his head. "Because I cook. Because you love me as a person, not as a name on a Forbes list." He set the plate down and pulled her into an embrace. "And you're no longer the girl digging through trash. No longer the forgotten heiress. You're Arioth, the one I chose. Not for your past, not for your title, but because you're you." Outside, the rain had started to fall, but in the warmth of the kitchen, all that remained was the sweet scent of pancakes, soft laughter, and two people learning to love in peace after surviving life's fiercest storms. On a hilltop north of suburban California, where ocean breezes drifted through rows of lavender, stood a white wooden chapel. Simple, elegant, private. Not overly grand, not loud, just as Arya always liked it. The sky was unnaturally blue that day. Sunlight streamed like golden silk through the stained glass, painting the chapel in a soft, warm glow. Inside, Ryan stood before a mirror, adjusting his tie and breathing slowly. Outside, the gentle notes of a classical violin floated through the air. Through the chapel window, he could see neatly arranged chairs filled with familiar faces, friends, colleagues, even some who had walked with him through the hardest parts of his life. From afar, car arrived. The door opened, and Arya stepped out in a simple ivory gown, a sheer veil trailing behind her, her hair in a soft bun with a single lavender sprig tucked by her ear. No one looking at Arya now would ever guess she had once been homeless, cast out of her own story. But Ryan remembered. He remembered seeing her beside a dumpster for the first time, her face smudged, but her eyes defiant. The handshake that felt like a dare. The fierce debates that made his heart pound, not with anger, but with something he hadn't yet recognized as love. The chapel doors opened. Arya walked in. Gasps and soft murmurs filled the room. Then fell, silent, as if someone had turned down the volume of the world, leaving only the sound of her steps moving toward him. They stood face to face. There was no need for the officiant to ask, "Do you?" Their eyes had said it long ago. Still, Arya whispered, "I do. From the day you gave me that first dress." Ryan replied, without a microphone, "I do. From the moment you stepped out of that car and faced Olivia with your chin held high." A ripple of warm laughter moved through the room. They exchanged rings, simple bands made of recycled platinum. Arya had insisted on that design not to avoid luxury, but because she wanted a symbol of rebirth, not excess. They kissed. But unlike the over-the-top cheers of many weddings, here there was a quiet reverence, as if everyone understood. This day was not just the union of two people, but the victory of trust, love, and forgiveness. That evening, the reception was held outdoors by the ocean in a crisp white suit. Ryan raised his glass. "Less than a year ago, I only knew success and power. I didn't understand love, not until a girl with tangled hair and fierce pride walked into my life." He paused, his eyes on Arya, who was laughing. She didn't need a hero to save her. She was the reason the hero had to change. The crowd erupted into applause. After the speech, Arya tugged on Ryan's hand and led him away from the reception. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the sea. I need one more promise." They sat in the sand, waves gently brushing against their feet. "I don't need you to promise me forever," she said, eyes on the stars. "Just promise me you'll never forget who I used to be." Ryan took her hand. "You're the woman I love." From Arya, the Wanderer. To Arya Kendrick. And even if you one day leave it all behind, I'll still be with you. She rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "Then let's begin our life again, not with titles, but with each other." Not far from them, an older man, a former senior media advisor from the old Kendrick empire, quietly snapped a photo. That photo would later hang in Arya and Ryan's office. Beneath a handwritten quote they chose together, "True love doesn't begin where people arrive, but in how they see each other when all direction is lost." 1 year after Ryan and Arya officially announced their engagement, their lives had changed completely. Arya had reclaimed everything that was once stolen from her: her shares, her name, and her dignity. She was no longer the girl standing outside a luxury hotel with dirt on her face and fire in her eyes. She was now the CEO of an investment firm called Nova Arya, a name that whispered of new beginnings for a star once thought to have faded. As for Ryan, the man who once believed true love couldn't exist in the world of the wealthy, he had become someone who set alarms to water Arya's favorite plants in the morning, and who often cooked breakfast just to see her smile. They had weathered many storms together, but the biggest storm arrived in the form of an old letter, delivered in the strangest of ways. One June afternoon, as they were preparing for a business trip to Switzerland, a small package arrived at their home. It bore a postmark from a tiny island in Italy, the same island where Arya's father had once gone to recover before he passed away. Inside was a handwritten letter. Arya froze as she recognized the familiar penmanship. In the corner, barely legible, were the words, "To my beloved daughter, if one day you reclaim everything." The letter felt like a key, unlocking a past long thought buried. "My dear child, if you're reading this, it means you've risen. You've held your head high and walked forward. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you on that journey, but I never stopped believing in you. People may take your name, your wealth, but no one can ever steal the heart of someone strong. You are my light. And if you found someone who loves you for you, not for the name behind yours, then never let them go." Arya read in silence, tears smudging the ink. Ryan sat quietly beside her, saying nothing, but in his eyes was a new depth of gratitude. Gratitude for the man who had once symbolized power, but who was, above all else, a father who loved his daughter in quiet ways no one saw. That evening, Ryan took Arya to a small hill behind their home, the same place they once watched stars together in the early days. He took out a necklace, with a ring hidden inside. Engraved on the ring were 2 simple words, "Bravely loved." Ryan said, "We don't need a grand wedding, but I want you to know, if I had to choose again from thousands of faces out there, I would still choose the girl digging through trash with pride in her eyes." That night, as the city lights shimmered below them, a quiet celebration took place in their hillside villa, just the two of them, one piano, and a song Arya's father used to play when she was little. Love doesn't always begin in the softest ways, but if it can endure the layers of hidden sorrow and scars, it becomes the most lasting thing people can hold on to. In life, none of us can choose where we were born. Some are handed the spotlight from the very beginning. Others are pushed into the shadows without ever knowing why. But what truly defines a person isn't their status or their past, it's how they rise again and how they hold on to their dignity even when everything else is gone. The story of Ryan and Arya isn't just a modern fairy tale between a billionaire and a homeless girl. It's a journey of recognition, of looking past judgment, beyond the surface, to see the true worth within someone. Arya once lost everything, but she never lost herself. And Ryan, despite having it all, had to learn how to open his heart, to let go of pride, and to love fully, genuinely. We can't always control the storms life throws at us, but we can choose how we respond. We can choose how we love, how we trust, and who we stand beside, not because they're perfect, but because they're brave, sincere, and never gave up on who they are. And if you're going through days of feeling lost, please believe this. Someday, you'll meet someone patient enough to see your real worth, and kind enough to write a brand new chapter with you. So the story of Ryan and Aria has come to an end, not with the grand music of Olivia's wedding, but with a quiet echo of the heart of two people once broken, yet still brave enough to believe in love again. In life, there are times when we feel like mere bystanders in someone else's story. But sometimes it's in those fleeting, fragile moments that we stumble upon what we've been searching for all along, someone who truly sees our worth, even when we're at our lowest. If you've ever silently walked through pain, if you've ever been judged for your past, then we hope this story reminds you. You deserve to be loved. It's not because you're perfect, but because you're you. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If today's story touched even the tiniest corner of your heart, leave us a little comment below so we know you're still here, still believing in beautiful things. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next emotional journey with Snail's story. Until we meet again in the next video, when we'll have another story to whisper just for you.